Somewhere in the middle of the two extremes lies a world of open discourse. Probing the depths of the in-between. Welcome to Gray Matters Radio with your host, Michael DeVine.
Good evening, ladies. Wow. We are Gray Matters Radio. It's a little bit of holiday little break that we kind of took. And so I know you guys are probably all wondering where we're at. You're probably wondering we were probably canceled over the holiday breaks. I know a lot of people get layoffs. 'Cause apparently people in our government got some layoffs, notices and everything. And so you probably were wondering, oh my God, we didn't hear about Gray Matters. Where'd they go? Did they get laid off? Were they part of the furloughed?
We were furloughed.
We were. I mean, were we actually part of the government? Now, that's kind of scary. People might think that we're actually part of the government and that maybe this is just all propaganda. That's kind of scary and everything, I mean, God, maybe we were. Maybe that's like part of the trick.
I heard that someone had accused Joe Rogan of being seriously a government-backed agent.
Are you serious?
Seriously, he addressed it. He laughed his ass off, but that's what he said.
Well, if Joe was maybe we are. I don't know. Maybe that's half the trick, But just in case, just reminding everyone, if you're joining us for the very first time, we're Gray Matters Radio. What actually is Gray Matters Radio? Well, Gray Matters, it's a radio show. It operates somewhere in the world of the in-between. What is this in-between that you ask? I know you're all probably dying to find out. Well, unless you've been sleeping underneath a rock for the last 20 or 30 years, we have these things. They're called political parties. Democrats, Republicans. Well, we try to operate the show somewhere in the middle, in between both of them, the area of the gray. Now, I know that's a little bit crazy, but, frankly, I'm actually kind of colorblind. I once thought a brown couch in Bill's house was brown that actually was actually gray, or vice versa. I don't know, because I'm colorblind. So I figured, why not make a show in the gray and just bring more people with me so I don't feel as alone. I even made the walls of my studio actually gray. So I am Michael DeVine, your host, your tour guide of the gray. Now you're probably asking yourself, why Michael DeVine? Why are you qualified to guide us on this journey? Well, I'm a counselor. I'm a counselor with a conscience. I kind of saw the world kind of go into the shitter. One client, one family at a time. So I figured, you know what? Why not bring my brand of therapy to the world and heal everyone? Take that responsibility on myself. Now, naturally, I couldn't do that alone. I had to bring some people with me along in this journey to help me along the way. So joining me, as always, my good buddy, Bill Reed, owner of the armchairquarterback.com. And we have Richard. .org, .net, .edu. And we have Richard DeVine, my dad, the professor, who literally is the one keeping us all honest with facts. Because frankly, I paid attention in the psych classes, but I didn't pay attention anywhere else. So my dad was there to do my homework and do the heavy lifting on the show. So Dad, Bill, welcome.
Hey,
what's happening?
Yeah. So now, how's everyone doing? We all had a little bit of a break. Now, Bill, how was your Christmas?
Oh, it was real good, real good. Couldn't complain. Weather wasn't that bad, and it was good to have some time away to spend with the family. So, yeah, absolutely, loved it.
Yeah, Dad, what'd you do? I just saw you a couple days ago.
I was there with you.
I'm sorry.
It's like I just saw you a couple days ago, man. But yeah, we took a little bit of a break over the holiday because, well, the holidays for being with family, not making radio shows. Plus, if I attempted to make a radio show and go into the basement, I think my family probably would have been pretty pissed off at me. So I took a week off. I figured, God took a break after the seventh day, right? Or the fifth day. I don't even know. I'm not that well versed in the Bible, so I figure I can take a break over the Christmas holiday.
Do you read the Bible, Mike?
I have read something called the Bible. Yeah. Do you have any paths memorized?
Actually, ironically enough, I was watching Pulp Fiction today, so that's what made me think of that.
Oh, Ezekiel 25:17 actually is not really remotely even close.
Well, it's similar, right? But they definitely take some liberties with it because I had to look that up.
Of course you did, yeah. I was actually vastly disappointed. I was reading going, wait a minute, God got this all wrong. Samuel was the one, Jules had it all right, and God got it wrong. But then I figured I'd sack religious.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
No, I wish it would have. I think they should revise it. I mean, what was it called? The Council of Trent, or what was the council where they decided what went into the Bible?
Oh, jeez.
Can't remember what that was.
God, now you're asking me some of my biblical history.
I know.
Put them on the spot.
I know. Well, I mean, that's not the professor's expertise for religious history, right? But I think we should reconvene it.
I know it was a very detailed and highly political event of what was going to be included, what was not going to be included.
So I
And
see
it
why.
all had to fall within the doctrine and the belief of the Catholic Church.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out why we can't do it now. I mean, if a movie said it better than, I don't know, God.
Let me get this straight. Let me make sure I'm crystal clear.
Yeah. I mean,
Michael DeVine is suggesting that we change the Bible.
Well, I mean,
Sure,
what's the difference? All right, so you got the Gospels, right?
Sure.
Eyewitness accounts, right? So like 5 people all saw the same damn thing and wrote about it, right? Okay, roll with that one, right? Now, all right, now what about the stuff that came after? Well, Jesus came to me and told me this, and now all of a sudden there's a deviation, and all of a sudden it really became about what somebody else thought that they saw or what Jesus told them after the fact. So I mean, why can't Samuel L. Jackson and Pulp Fiction just he's not adding something to it; he's just rewriting it.
That's a good point.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's more entertaining. Maybe more people would actually read the Bible if we rewrote it. You have like the new international version. Why can't we have the new Pulp Fiction version or the new Quentin Tarantino version?
It's weird. Speaking of Jesus, like, why is it that people only see like Jesus in like their tortilla or in the clouds, or they see it in like a sweat stain in their shoes? Jesus,
it's like him and Elvis.
Yeah, but here's what I was gonna say. But like. Yeah. People will spot Elvis at the gas station, or they'll spot Tupac somewhere. We need more Jesus sightings.
I mean,
on the street. Be like, I think I just saw Jesus.
How many times have you heard a Jew go, "Hey, I saw Moses in my cereal this morning"? I got this matzah out, and it looked just like Moses.
Well, I'm just saying.
Well, I think everybody is. The Virgin Mary is the most observed.
There you go.
That is true.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, so
anyway, has a visionary of the Virgin Mary.
Well, she's always crying, right? You always see the ones where it's like in the church, the Virgin Mary is crying. That you always see that one a lot too. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that is like really. I mean, do the Muslims have the same thing? Like, dude, I was opening up this. I had this pizza the other day, and dude, it looked just like Muhammad.
I don't think they know what Muhammad looks like.
Well,
it's against the religion to depict him, is my understanding.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I was curious because, all my inpatient days, you had a lot of schizophrenics, and they'd all say they're Jesus, right? Or it'd have something about Jesus talking to them. But the thing is that we never had any Muslim schizophrenics. And so I was curious because I never had a chance. I don't know any Muslim psychologists. And I was like, I'm wondering if, like, in Middle Eastern countries, whether or not they see, is it like, I'm Muhammad, I'm the prophet? Like, is it the same thing over there?
I don't know, I don't know if that kind of talk would be tolerated. I don't know.
I know.
You were
I'm
like,
really
I'm
curious.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, they have these things called culture-bound syndromes, where they're only unique to that culture. Like, for example, my favorite one, I just like saying it, and you see it in predominantly Latin countries. It's called "Ataque de Nervicios," attack of the nerves. It's like a nervous breakdown. And there's a section in the DSM called culture-bound syndrome. So maybe
interesting.
Yeah, that what?
Is that anything like when people like hit their head and then they wake up from the coma and they're speaking in a different accent?
That is what we. Well, we have what we call fugue responses, where it's like an amnesia, where people just start a whole new family.
And they go, "Hello, how long have I been asleep for?"
Mental health is weird, man. It is really, really weird. And we're probably going to go to hell or get censored. It's a lot of hate mail on this conversation.
No, there's no hate. It's just talk. It is
talk. But that's where it's dangerous nowadays. We can't just talk. We can't even make jokes. People get offended.
Not here.
Like my wife is sitting next to me. I can tell she's offended. My cat. Look at her. Daphne is offended.
Clearly, the cat is upset.
Look at her. She is so pissed right now. She is. And then my dog Pia, she's just not even looking at me. She's just disgusted right now. That's how far we've come, Bill.
Well, luckily for us and everyone here, we don't offend too easily, and we get just as well as we give, and we can even laugh at ourselves. So,
well, that's the whole point of the show. So we have the ability to talk about things that might be a little, I don't know, difficult for people outside of here to talk about, but in the grave, we should be able to talk about it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I figure so it's kind of like, hey, usually our style that we've kind of had is either big current events. I know the holiday one. I was like, hey, should we do like a holiday show? And then so I was really thinking about that, a Christmas, New Year's Eve show. But then not even our own government right now, our administration, can take a break. So apparently over the holiday break, in case you haven't been paying attention to anything, General Mattis totally resigned.
Yeah.
And basically not only resigned, which was, fascinating enough, but the dude resigned, wrote an open letter to all his people, then it got published, and basically called out Trump and the administration for his decision to unilaterally pull out of Syria. And apparently he's been trying to basically stop this for a long time. So he's been wanting to leave for a while, but his whole idea was, hey, I'm going to stop this. Hung in there for, I guess, a couple days thinking I can change his opinion. But Trump obviously didn't, made the announcement, straight up resigned like that. 2 days later, the envoy to the fight against ISIS totally walked away. And Trump basically said, I don't even know who the guy is, which scares the shit out of me, that the envoy, the chief ambassador to the war against ISIS, done. And then the only thing that we really heard was all the intelligence community, all of the military people were totally against it. And he came up with the idea while talking with the Turkish Prime Minister, Erdogan, who basically just said, ISIS is totally pretty much eradicated. You guys can leave. And Trump apparently was like, dope, sweet, let's go, right?
And Mad Dog Mattis said, you know what?
I'm done.
He's like, let me throw the deuces. I'm out of here.
So then if that wasn't crazy enough. I was like, oh, crap, we're going to have to talk about that. And then we kind of knew Kelly was going to resign.
Right.
And then he totally made a decision. And
he's just leaving immediately. Wasn't it going to be a while out or a few weeks out? And then
Yeah, and so, now, Dad, all right, so I am dying to get your opinion because you're a veteran. It's one of the reasons why I wanted you to really talk about some. But, you are obviously a student of Middle Eastern politics, Middle Eastern anti-terrorism, war. So if anyone's going to have, I think, a very neutral, down-the-middle, scholarly opinion about all this, it's going to be you. So I guess, number one, you've been through a lot with Nixon and Kennedy and just all the shit show of all that. So when you saw what happened over Christmas break with Mattis and the reason why he left and then a letter, what was your honest opinion? What was your honest gut reaction to it?
I'll go back a little bit to our pullout. I think my feeling was I said, well, here we are, deja vu all over again, is when Gerald Ford in 75 made the decision at just when it looked as though that, when the North Vietnamese forces were basically sitting in Saigon, and Ford made the decision that we were no longer going to support the South Vietnamese government, that they would have to fend for themselves, no more money. I think that seemed like a little bit of an act of betrayal to everybody that we had supported and fought with us. So I sat there again. I said, well, it doesn't really surprise me, given the fact that how long we've been there in the Middle East. If you take to the modern, we've been there since almost 1991, when we had the first Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And then we had the interlude, to where, you had the Clinton era, going on, and then was the building of the Al-Qaeda. You had the coal incidences, you had issues in Libya, and then comes to 9/11, to where you had the World Trade Center. And then from the World Trade Center, it's been really almost nonstop. So when you take a look at all the years of war, I sat there and I went, well, at what point do you get really frustrated and saying, do we really want to continue fighting anymore? But it's the problem is, what, where's the resolve to do it? But I really do feel as though that in the Middle East, what we're doing, it just, cemented the policy to where, as we are going to withdraw out of the Middle East, the Russians are definitely going to be taking and filling up that vacuum. And that I felt even when Obama was doing it, and he was starting to make that removal. The vacuum was being then filled up by the Russian was looking after 40 years of being on the sidelines is now the Russians were rebuilding and wanting to reestablish the influence of the USSR.
But why Syria, though? Because they could have been involved anywhere. Because
Syria's
why
pivotal.
Syria of all places?
Well, if any of the places that were really going to be best for all this was going to be Syria, because that's been a long time influence of the old Soviet Union, and that was almost really the largest satellite that Russia had the greatest influence in the old days, during the USSR days, to where Bashir's father, Assad, had welcomed and embraced the Russians, from military, from technical to the whole thing. So it was a natural for the Russians to want to try to come back in and use Syria as a symbol of their reemergence and their rebirth from both their military, their technical, and also the platform to start selling what they want to do, sell arms.
Doesn't it make Trump look weak?
Establish the influence. So, but
doesn't it make Trump look weak, though? Because we know Putin wants to be there. We know he was pissed that we were there. Hell, we killed a bunch of their guys that were there. Unknowingly, basically.
Yeah.
But
it makes us look like we're cowtailing to him.
Well, if you go back onto some of this area, was Obama said he drew a line in the sand if they would use gas, but never went through it. Trump said if you use gas, we're going to come at you. We're going to do some type of retaliatory response so that you don't use this gas again. I just don't know.
Did you see though that Mattis? Did you see the thing about Mattis's paper though? He wrote a paper basically saying
that's what concerns.
There's no evidence. Yeah, there's no evidence. Yeah. Maybe that there was a gas attack.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Like I know there was some debate on whether or not not only did the gassing take place, which I think it probably did, but it was who actually maybe did it. Like, was it actually
there was
done?
A lot of claims that some of the rebel forces got a hold of gas.
Right.
They did it on purpose to stage it.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, in order to provoke the United States, they knew they would have to use the gas to provoke the United States.
Right.
To get involved.
It almost makes you wonder.
And that's.
It almost makes you wonder the first time the gassing happened, like, Obama drew that line in the sand, the red line, and didn't do anything. But it was, and just because he didn't come out and say it, maybe Obama either didn't want to do anything and get involved, or maybe Obama had intel saying, well, Mr. President, we don't know if who did the gassing. It makes you wonder. That was one of the things you might not ever know.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where
I think the key being is how far do you want to get drawn into a quagmire?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem.
Civil wars are nasty.
Well, in
a civil war.
Well, and I think that's a problem that we fought. It's kind of like I think Dad, when you and I were kind of talking about this, during the week, and it's like, okay, Trump does technically have a point. It's kind of like, all right, like, dude, we're going to be there forever. We've been there so long, right? And then when you're talking to the generals, they don't exactly have a plan to defeat them, right? But then now you're kind of screwed though, because when we destabilized the region, when W went in there and took out Saddam, we destabilized the whole damn region. Then the problem that we have is we create this vacuum where ISIS comes back. So it's kind of like we kind of broke it and we buy it, and that seems to be if you look at with every major problem in the world right now, is that we broke it. Right. And I remember we had Ryan on, and Ryan was like, well, dude, that was like 20, 30 years ago, but that's the American mindset of we broke it, we did it for our own gain, we didn't like the results or the downstream effect of it, and then we just want to walk away going, well, that wasn't my decision, that was my dad's.
I know, but it's like I said, at some point in time, if Trump pulls troops out of the Middle East, some people are going to say, well, he's weak, he's a coward, he's doing it for the Russian, whatever. They're going to have the naysayers. If Trump keeps the troops in the Middle East or increases our presence there, people are going to say he's a warmonger, he's beating the war drum. I just don't think he can win. That's politics. People are going to always find the people that are Trump detractors, and the same thing with Obama detractors. no matter what you do, you're gonna have those people that are gonna say, "Well, see what he did. He didn't do this, or he did do that." It's
and I'm not defending Trump, nobody, but generals love a darn good war.
Yeah, that's true. No, they do. It's war is money.
I do remember going many years ago when I sat in a desolate little area looking at a bunch of holes in the bottom of a helicopter, and we were all sitting there a little bit talking, and I leaned over to this one colonel and I said, do we really have a plan how to win this thing, or are we just going to get here shot up? And you know what he told me? Yeah, it's good for the country if we're here.
Well, it's just like
I sat there and I went, then you really don't have a plan.
Well, I mean, but think about it.
And if you remember when when Clark Clifford took over as the Secretary of Defense.
Clark, yeah.
After McNamara was summarily, basically almost like Matt, basically he was fired, but he became the World Bank. As Clark Clifford sat with all the generals, and he asked them to tell him, what is the plan to win? Not one general knew how to win. And I sat there and I went going, well, after 17, 18 years of all this, you think that we would have a plan other than the surges that where, with McCain and all that, where we put more and more men in, and that seemed to work. And then when you move the men out, there's a vacuum and other people walk in. So at what point do you really truly just say, we can't continue to be here and spend our valuable resources, and build somebody else's infrastructure for them only to blow it up again, and then we have to go in and rebuild it when our own infrastructure in our own country is falling apart.
Yeah, I mean that's
and I sit and I think about it all the time. Is that we used to have a bridge that the Korean engineers would rebuild, and a month later, the VC would come in and blow it up, and then they'd rebuild the bridge.
Well, is that the Bridge over River Kwai was kind of similar to that, wasn't it? That movie?
No, but I'm just saying, I really just don't know. At some point, when do you say enough is enough?
I think, and this is where I think the biggest problem is, and Bill, I mean, like, we've always been people that, whether it be through schooling, whether it be through books, movies, documentaries, we've always tried to like scratch below the surface of everything, right? Like I remember, Dad, you've always told me stories of like, CIA involvement and what the CIA was doing there. Like I remember when this is, right around the time USS Cole happened. I remember because, like being really interested. I remember reading a bunch of books. One was called Holy War Inc. And it went into the whole story about how the U.S. trained bin Laden and all these Afghan freedom fighters basically to fight the Russians, right?
Sure.
But then the second we were done with them, we're like, all right, deuces, see ya, bye. And then it's like, that's why Al Qaeda basically was pissed off, and that's why they were trained so well.
They were also mad at us too after when Saddam, right, was invaded Kuwait and was threatening the Saudi Arabians. And I believe bin Laden and company went to the Saudis and said, hey, we'll protect you from Saddam. Here's what we can offer. And I believe the Saudis turned him down.
Yeah.
And
bin Laden was like, don't let the infidels in the Holy Land. And they did.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And I think that was part of it.
That was also part of it, yeah.
Well, and if you go back to Reagan and the Iran-Contra and Oliver North, if you read Oliver North's books, he talks about meeting, with the Mujahideen when they were arming against the Russians in Afghanistan, when the Russians were being there, and then the United States decided, to arm the Mujahideen. And a lot of those leaders of the Mujahideen, were coming in from Saudi Arabia. And he talks about this one person that he met. And he said he was scared when he looked into the man's eyes. He could see the evil. He could see the hatred, everything. That was Bin Laden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh.
And he said he knew we were playing with fire because this man did not like the United States at all being any parts of this in what they considered to be the holy world.
Well, and this is the thing.
The United States was the infidel. So, no matter how you look at the Middle East, is when the United States went back into Iraq, under George W., that basically turned that actually turned that region into a gigantic holy war, in which, as long as with the Americans being in there, now every radical Arab was going into Iraq and joining up forces.
Yeah. And that's
so they could fight and kill Americans.
Exactly. And that's the thing that, and this is where I think the problem is that majority of people do not actually understand what the real reason is why we're doing something, or why the real reason why something is a major kind of issue. I mean, a lot of these are CIA operations, like with the whole, what was it with the conservatives love nailing Obama on that secret payment that he made to Iran. And it's like, and we're all making judgments about what it was. I mean, a lot of people.
What was it, $400 million in cash?
Yeah, and so a lot of people are sitting there going, well, Obama funded ISIS, basically, because we gave the money to Iran.
He kind of did. I mean,
but
let's be honest.
But how do we? What do we really know was going on?
Well, I don't know what was going on, and maybe I look at it more black and white. But the way I see it is just an outsider looking in without any inside knowledge of. I'm sure there was back deals, and I understand that one hand washes the other. I get that, but just as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a voter, whatever you want to say, I look at it as we are a country that is involved in a international war on terrorism.
Yep.
This is what we've been told since 9/11. I understand it. I support it. Turn around, and then our president secretly sent $400 million in cash to what has been agreed upon by both Democrats and Republicans as the world's leading sponsor of terrorism.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think they're going to do with this money? It's going to go to Hezbollah, right? It's going to go.
The money that was given was money that was confiscated by the United States.
Absolutely, it was
during the time of the taking of the U.S. Embassy that we never gave back.
Yeah.
Plus monies that were impounded from bank accounts.
Yeah.
And everything for purchase of arms, repair parts, and all that. So
I know we owe it. We quoted to him. I just felt like in a war, during an international war on terrorism, was it good strategy to help the world's leading sponsor of terrorism with the funds?
But here's the way I look at it, though. It's like every war that we fight, every proxy war that's been started by an intelligence agency, we're fighting an enemy that we basically armed. Al-Qaeda, we armed. ISIS was created by us going and destabilize the region. The war on drugs, the CIA armed all the fucking rebels.
Yeah.
And then now we're trying to fight the war on drugs with the cartels that have the weapons that our CIA gave them, right?
It's like Frankenstein's
fuck.
monster came
exactly.
to life.
And so every war that we fight, and then so one has to sit there and wonder, going like Jim Garrison, in his book On the Trail of the Assassins. Dad, you actually had me read this. In JFK, it was Donald Sutherland's character. It was technically in a book that, if I recall, there are two characters that played Donald Sutherland's character. And one of the things he said was that, why was Kennedy killed? And he went on this whole story about, you look at any great nation, any great superpower, their superpower status is always predicated on their war powers. And their war spending. And he was basically indicating one of the reasons why Kennedy was capped, because one, Kennedy was realizing the CIA was kind of shady and he wanted to shut him down. Number two, he wanted to pull all the troops out of Vietnam. He didn't want to do that. And is it a coincidence? In the heart of the military-industrial complex, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all these companies, that's where Kennedy was shot. These wars.
And also Kennedy was reapproaching to the Russians. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, is essentially he basically neutralized the Joint Chiefs, the LeMays and all that were just so hot for a war with the Russians. So now we're all of a sudden, Kennedy realized we came so close to launching the nuclear weapons, that now we had to go in, and if you ever read his speech at the American University in 1963, it was a speech that was made to where Kennedy basically was establishing the new order, and the Russians accepted that speech. I mean, it was one of the few of the written dialogues by the United States president that it was actually allowed to be read by the Russian people. And if you ever read it, it's very there where it's the recognition. But as I said, when Eisenhower left office, in his farewell address, what did he tell everybody? Beware of the military-industrial complex.
And now I have a good question.
He knew where it was going.
I have a question about that, because to me, I mean, so think about this, Bill. All right, imagine this, right? Imagine Obama, all right, on his last day in office, and he's doing his little goodbye, like, hey, America, it's been real. Appreciated the last 8 years. Oh, yeah, by the way, beware of the military-industrial complex. Deuces, bye, mic drop. I mean, so why is that? Why do people not talk about that? Because to me, that's a big fucking deal. Like, the outgoing guy who's a former general, outgoing president, is basically telling you, beware of the military.
I mean, the president's saying it, right? But which is important. But if people like you and I say it or bring it up or say, look at this, we're labeled as what? Conspiracy theorists. And conspiracy theorists are normally labeled as what? Whack jobs, nuts. We are. I mean, let's be honest.
So now, is the truth is that now, Dan, I'm curious to get your idea of this one. And Bill, I want your on this. So, like, do we almost think what Trump is almost basically saying is that does he realize that everyone basically has their own self-interest, and the guy literally does not trust a single freaking thing, and now literally is resorting to, hey, the Turkish prime minister said this, I'm going to believe him over my own intelligence agencies?
Well, I think it also depends to who profits from going to war.
Yeah.
I mean, Dad, what do you think? Do you think he really is realizing how surrounded he is by self-interest and enemies, and that he really just doesn't know what to do, and the fact that he isn't very well versed in any of this stuff and really has no clue?
Well, I think it goes back a little bit more to where his only trust is in a very, very few people, and that's family. Okay, and to everybody else, he's very suspect, or he doesn't trust. You can see it in almost everything he does. The only people that he truly really, you get the feeling, is like the Kushners, his daughter, and his sons. And very, very few people does he have any trust in. So, he could be very paranoid, or, is he really asking other people what's really truly going on? I think the one key in this whole thing is that the United States being in the Middle East, is a lot of it has been predicated upon our support of Israel. I mean, a lot of people haven't even addressed that the one part of the whole area is yet is Hezbollah and Iran fill in the vacuum being left by the United States withdrawal, and with the Russians taking up the vacuum in certain areas. I mean, even they're smart enough to know they're not going to get involved in a lot of other things, because they do not want to get involved in the quagmire of the civil wars between the different sects of the Arab nations, the Islamics, between the Shiites and all those. They don't want to even get involved. They're just looking to see where it could be to their advantage. But the key being is the Russians want to supply arms. The Russians want to supply technology, i.e. in nuclear reactors.
It seems like that to me. It's like Russia.
Bases. They want to have. But you still got to sit there and say, well, wait a minute. If Iran is so anti-Israel, the United States has pulled out of those deals. There's sanctions against Iran. You've got Hezbollah, which is really just another arm of Iran. and Iran is so bent on destroying Israel, then does the United States have feelings that they want to get out of this part of the quagmire because there could be issues with Iran going on that we don't even know about?
What you just said is the most perfect point. Is that we know maybe 5% of what's really going on, and yet we're making we're making these black, and especially the media and these politicians, they're making it this black and white thing, and it's like, dude, we don't even know, like, less than probably even the 5% that we know is probably a bullshit 5%. So how can we possibly make a decision? I'm always a big fan of you go off of what you know. And what is it that we do know, right? Well, we do know in a vacuum of U.S. presence, bad shit has happened over there, right? Number two, we know Russia, just based on Putin, what he's trying to do. He's about building up his empire again. I mean, he invaded Crimea and took that back. He wants Ukraine back. Now he's getting involved in Syria. He's totally having a pissing contest with Trump because, Dad, what did you say? The Russians only know one thing, strength. And that's what the biggest test is. And so Trump basically has looked like a little bitch on the national stage where basically goes, I don't believe my own intelligence communities. I believe this guy. He's
Did
totally.
You just call our president a little bitch?
He does act like a little bitch sometimes. Prove me wrong. He's the guy that talks a big game, like I'm going to beat everyone's ass, who's never been in a fight in his entire life. Yeah. And if he and that's the thing, the guy hasn't. And so on a big stage with big people, he always gets his ass kicked. He always looks like a little bitch.
I don't know. I mean, he kind of stared down North Korea a little bit.
North Korea is a fucking joke, though.
Are they, though?
Yeah, they are.
Are they?
Yes. Kim Jong-un is a little punk. They are so... I remember when I interviewed with a certain entity, all right?
Nuclear
the number one...
All
right,
punk.
So, listen, all right. So, when there was a certain entity I interviewed with when I was in graduate school, you know one of the biggest questions they asked me? Who is a bigger threat, Iran or North Korea? I want you to tell me why. And I said, without a shadow of a doubt, Iran. They goes, well, why? And I go, literally, because North Korea, yeah, they got some nuclear weapons, but the reality is whatever it is that they propose that they have is a fraction of really what they have.
True.
They might be able to detonate something, but they sure as shit can't guide any of it. Three, they are so easily neutralized. Because they're so isolated, you could easily neutralize them with tactical nukes, take everything out, and they have no ability to come after you. And the guy goes, that's a very good answer. And that's the whole thing. North Korea is nothing. It's the people that legitimately have power that you can lose. Those are the people that he tends to always kowtow to. And between Syria now and giving Russia Syria, between publicly denouncing our own intelligence agencies, saying, I believe Putin over my own intelligence agencies. Even if he believed it privately, you don't publicly humiliate your own government. It's exactly what he did.
You might be very well accurate there. I mean, but for all we know, I mean, and not to give him all the credit, but, Trump could be playing his own mind game, too, with Putin by saying, you're absolutely right. That's right, buddy. You got it all.
I'll entertain that. So, where would the evidence of that be?
Oh, I mean,
that's the thing. I'm always I think there's so much more evidence to show the guy is being outplayed because he doesn't have... But don't you feel
like sometimes, and I know I'm probably get a lot of laughter for this, but sometimes I do feel like Trump almost puts up this front that he doesn't know what's going on to get an advantage over maybe his enemies or his opponents, where, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm crazy. I could be doing anything, and I kind of feel like he knows a lot more. If that were true, though, in my opinion.
All right, so if that were true, where's the evidence of that? Because look at it. Look at his business empire. Okay, his business empire was in ruins. He's never, ever got a company that he's owned out of trouble. His answer has always been, I'm going to declare bankruptcy and wipe the debt out. Everybody else will be fucked. I'm going to be somewhat okay. His real estate empire wasn't really a real estate empire. It was naming rights. He didn't really own much of anything anymore. Almost all his money that he was earning was based off of his damn TV show. Yeah. Even Mark Burnett and all the producers almost even said the original idea of the show was kind of campy. Here's this guy who thinks he's like this big, awesome business guy, but he really isn't. Yeah. And then and that was the thing. It was almost like a joke at first, right?
Don't forget about Trump the game.
Oh, gosh. And so the reality is then you look at, okay, so let's say he's this mastermind as Jeffrey Lord, the CN guy. He's playing four-dimensional chess. You don't get it. show me the evidence of where that game has actually worked. Muhammad Ali, rope-a-dope, he'd still beat your ass, right? There was an end game. There was a result that made you go, he's playing possum, but he has it, right? But he's getting the results on an international stage with this little the trade war. He's fucked over our farmers. Royally. I mean, I have a lot of clients who are farmers, and they are fucked. Like, they realize, like, they joked when they said I got my first Trump check. And the reality is, and they're also losing a lot of their contracts. We're paying more for money. We've had plant closures. It hasn't worked. That's a big thing, right? This whole showdown with the wall. Even, like, literally, John Kelly came out today in the letter and basically said, there won't be a wall.
There is no wall.
There is no wall. We realize that. We've talked to the border people. Yeah. I mean, think about it.
Strongly worded signs will be
Mitch
placed at the
McConnell,
border.
who's the guy who's about the fight, about the votes, he's even like, dude, this is all you, man. And so that's where I go.
It's his hill to die on.
I know. And that's where I look at, where's the evidence that he's playing possum and this is a big game? Because now, to me, these are big states where he's basically saying to me, as a voter, as an American, he thinks immigrants from Mexico and Central America are a bigger threat than ISIS.
Well, he's saying that he thinks that. I don't.
That his actions say that.
Right.
I'm going to pull all my troops. I want to pull them out of Afghanistan. I want to pull them out of Syria. They're 99% contained. And I think all of our resources and all of our attention needs to go to our southern border.
I think only time will tell on if that's a good decision or not. I know we can sit here and say, oh, well, he should do this or he shouldn't do that. But the truth is, that might be something we might not know for several years or longer if that's a good decision or not. It might end up being a terrible decision, but it might not. I don't know.
I just don't see the evidence there.
Yeah.
I want him to be a good president. That's the thing. I don't hate the guy. I want him to be a good president.
Have we been there so long that we have now developed our own processes and systems and defense systems that that we can track and kill without actually having to have the men on the ground? That we have developed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah,
we can get to their financials. We can get to their communications. We can strike wherever we want, but we don't have to have all these men on the ground, and go through that expense and have that resources exposed. And I mean, again, we don't know.
That's the point.
No, we will never know. That's so private and top secret.
Yeah.
But
couldn't someone just go, hey, listen, believe me, guys. There's a different strategy here. We don't hear strategy. We hear nothing.
The Israelis, just think about it. The Israelis do not have troops in any countries other than theirs. Okay? But they can strike any terrorist group around the whole Middle East.
Well, Israel
because
still
they
to
have
this
developed
day.
the intelligence.
Yeah.
They've developed the means. Are we now at that point to where we've learned, after all this, that what use is it to have the men on the ground? I mean, he said that they were there to start training, the indigenous forces to be able to defend their own. So at some point, those people, those local military units that we've been training and arming and spending vast amounts of money on, they've got to be able to take the war to the ISIS and to all those people, while we use a very higher sophistication in our fight against, the terrorists.
And John Kelly,
I just don't know.
But think about John Kelly.
I really respect Kelly.
Well, did you read his letter today? What he said about? Yeah. Did you see the quote that I put up? What he said about what the real solution is with the whole immigration. He said it. And I said it on our immigration show, and I've said this multiple times. He goes, the problem is that if you want to stop immigration, he said, black and white, what you have to do, you have to fix the socioeconomic problems that are over there that pretty much we created, and that we have to stop the damn demand for the drugs.
How do you do that, though?
Well, and that's me personally, and this is actually one of the big reasons why I got into the show to begin with. I think as a clinician, a kind of unique in seeing how some of these things work, and I personally think what America doesn't have the ability to do is look at themselves in our society and go, we're creating a lot of these problems because we want things cheap. We want to be comfortable. We don't want to change because we'd have to be uncomfortable. And the reality is we created a lot of these problems, and we don't want to admit that. We have a president who's never, ever admitted he's ever done anything wrong. Not one time. I'd love for someone to show me where he has been contrite and go, that was all me. That was my fault, or that was on me. I screwed that up. No, we have a president and we have a country who everything is about. It's not me. It's that person. I don't want to admit that I'm the problem. The problem with America, we're the problem. Our society, we sit there and go, drugs, we got to stop them coming in. But no one wants to sit there and go, what is it about our society, the American dream that we've created that makes people demand drugs and don't want to feel anything or feel pleasure all the time?
Drugs just aren't. The drug trade and drug trafficking aren't just new as a new phenomena of the 70s, 60s, 80s, and all that. This goes all the way back into the time when you had the large immigrations coming in, and you had the Prohibition eras, to where you had the rise of the mafias, to where they were getting in the bootleg into beer, and then all of a sudden, here came the drug trafficking, where they were getting involved in narcotics, prostitution, gaming. It's been there. It's been there all the time.
Well, drugs have always. But think about drugs though. In cultures where there isn't really some capitalist money-based system, drugs are about expansion, spirituality, right? If you look at drug use where it's this out of control, I don't want to feel, or it's about pleasure seeking, it's only in countries where it's about capitalism and buy. From the second we're kids, I mean, think about our daughter is like, I want to buy this, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. We literally, from the time our kids they can hear anything, we've turned them in consumers. I want something, I want to buy something that's going to make me happy. I want that. If I buy this, I'm part of this group. And then we wonder why we have raised an entire generation of kids. That's all they want. Yeah. I want to feel drug. I want to feel good. And then they're miserable.
Well, I think too, when it comes to drugs, I mean, I don't think when people start using drugs when they're 15 or 20 or whenever, I don't think the first time they use drugs, they're like, I want to get so blackout, feel good. It's always like, hey, try this, or someone, that's usually how it goes. I think a lot of times
that's where it's changed, dude.
Well, but I think what happens is some of the drugs they have available now that weren't available as readily available 20 years ago even is so addictive, and I think it hooks people so much. Look at meth. Growing up, I never heard anything about meth. It just, you didn't hear about it. Now it's like literally an epidemic. Look at opioids, with pills and things like that. That was, nothing you didn't really hear about. Now, it's an epidemic. You have people, children, teenagers dying left and right. It's crazy just to see how it's got its hooks into people and how young. I just think that starts as maybe just have a good time, and then I think it quickly evolves, I think, for a lot of people into this habit that they didn't plan on obviously getting. I think it just gets their hooks in them, and it's just that's why I think a lot of them, there's still some people out there like, you know what, I just want to go out and get smashed tonight. Like, let's just get right. But I think there's some people that they literally, it got away from them quickly, and it's real bad news,
It's just, I just look at how can we possibly solve any of the world's problems when the majority of the people, A, don't even understand really what the real problem is, and B, don't want to sit there and go, you know what, we actually created the problem, and it's like, I feel like the Middle East problem, right? The military solution, to me, is almost like being a cancer doctor where you're constantly operating on the lung cancer while the person is still smoking. And it's like, no, we don't need to be attacking the cancer. We need to be attacking what causes the cancer. And to me, everything comes down to socioeconomics. Every dictator, every awful person who's been put in place in the Middle East, Africa, Central Latin America, are all dictators who were put in place by some Western European power because that country had something that we wanted, and we put
Oil.
people in place. It would be oil, minerals, strategic location.
Rare earth minerals.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is that then, so when you put a person in power that's willing to sell their own country's birthright out, the thing that they should be using to build up their economy and sell that out, they're self-serving people that don't serve their own people. And then ultimate power, they want to hold on to it. They corrupt it. That's the reality. And I think our congressmen, our intelligence people need to come out going, all right, gang, I can't really tell you everything because we have ongoing operations that would really be fucked up. But here's the truth. Here's the reality of every problem in the world. We created it. We did it for our own good. We have blowback. And if we keep trying to be this cancer doctor, keep cutting it out, we're going to go broke. We're never going to solve it. So maybe we need to start having an honest look in the mirror, and that might mean we have to make some changes as a country, our habits. We can't now. I think the problem with ultra liberals is that they just want to make all these changes right away. They see the world how it should be and have no patience for it, and they want it to be right now. That is not going to work. We're talking about if you were to change our economic system where it's less consumer based, or maybe I don't 100% need that. You can't just make that decision right now because then the economy would crash.
Well, what do they say? What do we want? Change.
What do we want?
When do we want
now?
it?
No.
5 to 12 years from now.
No,
They want it now.
But then the presidents fall into that going,
Yeah.
any real solution?
You're fired.
Yeah.
You're fired.
Well,
Get
think about
out.
it. Any
Yeah.
real
We're
solution.
leaving tomorrow.
I mean, any real solution is going to be going, listen, guys, we're going to do this. I don't know if it's going to work until like 10 years after I'm gone.
Yeah.
But it's going to work. Trust me. I mean, Dad, am I wrong? I mean, maybe I'm jaded and young, but am I that far off base of really what the score is and why we can't fucking solve anything?
Well, it's a term that I always use. If you want to really try to find what is, it's always a term I always tell somebody. If you want to find out how people act or why they act or what they do, just follow the money and you'll find out.
There you go.
Exactly.
Okay, and I think we as a whole, I don't care if you're who you are, ABC company, XYZ country, whatever. I think everything that we do has some type of trail that leads to money and wealth or to whatever, whether it is, is it oil? Is it minerals? Is it naval bases?
Strategic
Army
location?
bases, Air Force bases? Is it security? What we perceive that they present as strategic? There, I think everything has some means of why there is an action to be taken, and I'm sorry to say is this: everything deals around money.
Yeah,
sure.
So it's always somewhere around there, and I think us as a group. We don't know a darn thing.
No.
Other than what we read in the papers, and as I said before, now that we've had 24-hour news, I don't think there's any really serious, non-biased reporting. Every time I see breaking news, I break up laughing.
Remember when breaking news used to be like a building was fucking falling? Like, that used to be something major. Remember, like, I was a kid growing up, every time you saw breaking news, you almost got like a stomach ache, like, oh, wow, shit must be really bad. Now breaking news is like Donald Trump tripped and farted. Like, news at 11. Like, why is that breaking?
I remember
he broke wind?
In high school, they had breaking news. They turned on the TV. We had TV,
exactly.
And it was the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
It was,
I remember breaking news, a Challenger exploding. Breaking news, World Trade Centers are fucking falling down.
We were real little when the Challenger went down.
Breaking news, original Gulf War.
Today they call it fake news, but in the 1890s, when the U.S. was getting into imperialism, we had the newspapers, and what they called it was yellow journalism, which basically, if you took the incident, it was then blown up to make it something else. So when the pretext of when the Maine was supposedly blown up in Havana Harbor, yellow journalism went crazy, and they created the war fever that this was done by the Spaniards, by there, and no other story was going to be held. But was there a second side of the story? We'll never know. And I think yellow journalism didn't die. It's still here.
It's just changed. Yeah.
It's now we have mass media. We have social media. We have people that can take whatever, say, Fox News says or MSNBC, and it's all moved around into a different slant and everything else. And what's it's trying
they're all guilty
to become
of it.
Educated.
They all are.
Just trying to become educated is almost impossible.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's like, especially when you have people in our government. Think about all right, like with Trump, right? This whole Russia thing is a total hoax, right? Well, then why is it all these people around you are getting put in jail for lying about something? Because I come from a school of thought is if there's nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide, you tell the truth, right? Why is everyone around you getting in trouble for lying about Russia?
Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's a big
it's a giant coincidence,
conspiracy against Donald Trump.
And listen, man, hey, maybe the days of, maybe the days of capping a president are long gone.
Yeah.
All right, I could totally entertain that, right? And this is where, I'm gonna steer this to this last little part here, and we'll wrap things up. But so we're talking about what do we really know? One, we don't know shit, right? All we can know is take little tiny things that maybe we kind of know and make inferences and maybe try to find a pattern, right? And this is something where, Dad, you and I have talked about this. I think everyone I've ever talked to about this all says the same thing. So we have all these people that have worked for Trump. When they leave, they all start saying all these really fucked up things, right? Like, oh my God, there's all these problems. We have, Kelly, Mattis,
Omarosa.
Dude, how many people have worked for Trump that have come out and said these awful things? But then we have people in Congress, right? So Democrat, Republicans, all were saying the same thing over the weekend. I think they even signed, a letter basically warning that politics have gotten so bad that nothing can get done. It's about political tribalism. It's about what's best for party. Nothing about the country. But it's why aren't you fucking doing something about it when you actually were part of the system? Why is it every one of you guys are whistleblowing when you have no power anymore?
Because they're leaving the club and they're just, that's
that
all it
is
is.
it. What is that? What can we do? So this is
it's like a magician giving away the tricks after they've been thrown out of the magician union.
I want everyone. So Dad, I want you to start. So Dad, I want you to start on this one, Bill.
Deal.
So now, Dad. So I want everyone to answer this. This is where I want to end things off a little bit. So, Dad, why is it that we have all these people? What's your theory? Okay, that's all we know. All we know is that they're saying all this shit after they leave. So what does that tell us about the thing that they're a part of, that they can only say this after they leave?
Well, I think the key of it is you can't, while you're still under the oath, when you're in the government, when you're there in that office, you've sworn yourself to confidentiality. You've sworn yourself to certain things. But the only concern that I have is this: if things are that bad and the thing is that nuts, and they're all members of the cabinet, then why aren't they doing what they're supposed to be doing by the Constitution? Is that they are the first-hand people. If the president is not capable of handling the office, they have a certain process under the 25th Amendment in which they can then sign a letter and send it to Congress. So when I listen to some of these people after they get out, I'm going, well, if it's that bad, then why isn't somebody being the leader and getting all these cabinet officials together to sign that letter, basically attesting to the incompetence of the president? Or are they coming out and looking with their agents, how big a book deal can I get and how much money can I get, because I wasn't getting any money while I was in the office? That's my only thing there is that
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
If it's that bad, there is in the greatest document ever created by man, in our Constitution, there are provisions in that 25th Amendment, that the president's cabinet has been given to them a oversight of the president and a recourse if they feel though their oversight, feel that the United States and the Constitution are being compromised. But I'm still thinking, again, sorry, if you do it, you want to find follow the money, book deals.
There you go.
All right. Bill?
You become big consultants for CNN, become a consultant for MSNBC, from the Fox News, because a lot of them, if you see them, as soon as they leave, they're now consultants, political analysts for these news things. So I'm sitting here going, I just don't know how to play this thing out anymore. I'm just getting very frustrated and very angry. But I'll be very honest. If these people are in for their own, and they're not protecting the people of the United States and the Constitution, and something goes wrong, God help them. So there's going to be a lot of accountability at that point. So I just don't. You just get angry and you're just trying to feel it, and everything is a breaking news. So. But that's my feeling on it right now.
All right. Bill?
I couldn't agree more. I think, like he said, follow the money, see what the real intentions are. I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, if you tune into a Fox News or something like that, and they have Rupert Murdoch, who is a big time conservative, and then they're like, "Wow, man, it's conservative leaning news." Well, of course it is. Look who owns it. Same thing with the other media outlets. It's not, and the same thing with the politicians. They get out of office, and like he said, follow the money. Do they have a book deal? Are they getting a co-hosting job on some TV show? Like what's their motivation? Is it truly because it's what's in best interest of the country or the voters, or is it what's truly in the best interest of themselves and or their party? I mean, let's be honest. That's what I look at. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like it's so divided that it's really hard to take any of them at face value for what they say. I hate to say that, to be the cynic, but that's how I feel. Like he said, everything's breaking news, and this is this, and it's like they try to make everything like it's the end of the world, and I don't know. It just seems like it's hard to take some of it seriously.
It's like in Syria. Obama ran on his campaign was run on getting the United States out of Iraq, completely getting out of the Middle East and disengaging. And the election itself in 2016 had issues with removing the American fighting people from the Middle East and disengaging. So this shouldn't come as a shock to everybody, but I just would just like for somebody to tell us the exact truth, not giving up every top secret and all that, but tell the American people exactly what is truly going on, rather than all this fanatical raving that's going on and everybody quitting,
And that's honestly the thing. I look at what do I really think is kind of going on, and here's my thought. All right, and I thought this for a long time, and Dad, you brought up a really good point about truth. And why don't they, even I know some things are top secret, but why can't you come out and talk about certain things, right? And the thing is, all these people are smart. All the people that are in power, they didn't get to that power because they're idiots and thinking short-sighted. And I look at, there's a game that's being, there's a game that's being played that the wealthy have to completely understand that the game that they're playing is not going to, it's not going to end. It's going to, it's going to eat itself. It's going to cannibalize itself. It's so damn short-sighted. It's never going to work in the long run because all throughout history, when the wealthy have gotten all the power in the world, there's so many more poor people. There's always been overthrow of the government. They're not stupid. So that's why I look at going, we're basing all of our assertions, we're basing all of our opinions based upon a truth, a reality where we think we have an understanding of like what we're doing and why we're basically kind of doing it. And that's where I look at going, maybe there's a whole other truth out there that they can't even come out and even talk about. They can't even say what the hell that it is. You have to look at, there's secrets among family members that have been in the government where they've only had like 1 or 2 stories their entire lives. And I look at it, if a family member can hide from another family member a story that literally that the person they trust is not going to say anything, that means government people, we don't stand a freaking chance. And I mean, look at our presidents, right? They age like fucking 30 years by the time they're done. And they look like they're holding onto the steering wheel with both hands for 8 fucking years straight. And no wonder why they are completely gray by the end of it. I think there's a secret. I think anyone who enters Congress, anyone who enters the Senate, anyone has any clearances at all, a president, they get privy to a truth about the world, about governments, about purpose, about all this stuff. And for whatever that truth is, they can't say what the hell that it is. And so every move that they make is about serving that, but then also telling us a completely different one. And so it's like, I honestly believe like that's more the truth than anything. And that's why nothing can get solved, because there's something else going on. All these things serve another purpose that we have no idea. We can I postulate all day long about, oh, it's money, it's power, it's ratings and whatever. I think there's something else. And I think anybody that goes in learns about it. They can't talk about it. And nothing makes sense. None of it makes sense. Especially how much information all of us have nowadays.
That could get you into a thing, or is the idea of the advent of the Space Force, all these new hypersonic weapons. Is there something that people know? Could we be at war with in outer space?
Yeah, don't the Russians just announced they have a hypersonic?
You know what?
I'm getting to the point now is where there could be something else going on. I mean, Mars
think about
landers,
it. I mean, there seems to be like, it's almost becoming a joke because I mean we have things coming out now where we have our like astronomers come out like where in research you come out with a hypothesis and you first try to disprove it, and when you can't disprove it, then you look at the data. Okay, the data is showing a correlation or whatever stat they're using. They're finding things in far off galaxies, like between these fast radio bursts, between like there's this one thing where literally their most likely hypothesis after they've ruled through everything, an advanced civilization energy gathering device that was orbiting the sun, gathering it. We had that asteroid that came through our galaxy that accelerated. They have no idea why. And one of the biggest hypotheses, maybe it was some type of alien.
Who saw the UFO? Was it Ford or Carter? Dick, do you remember back in the day?
I think it was Carter, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was Jimmy Carter, yeah.
I think it was.
So we have, I mean, you have all these UFOs being caught on the International Space Station feed. Mysteriously, every time it cuts off. We have our solar observatory that was completely shut down by black ops. I mean, helicopters, people were sent home. No one was told anything.
You know what some people will say?
What?
Thanks, Obama.
Thanks, Obama.
Even though he had nothing to do with it.
And so it's like, you do start getting an idea of there's so much coming out now. And, I mean, look at the Las Vegas shooter. I mean, that shit is fucking hanky as shit. It's getting to the point now where it's almost like with the Vegas shooter and, like, the solar observatory closing, they don't even bother to even go back and talk about it. They don't even go, we're not going to ask anything. I mean, don't you think it's weird that there's all this evidence coming out about the Las Vegas shooter where you have these officers talking about how they knew there were multiple shooters. They talked about getting his phone so they can contact the other. We have multiple people reporting multiple shooters.
Yeah, but if they're still investigating, though, wouldn't it not be terribly uncommon to not mention that?
But why isn't the news reporting it? Why is it there's
that? I don't know.
That's the weird thing. And so my personal theory is that there's a whole other truth out there that eventually they're going to have to say something. But what scares the shit out of me is that it's so obvious. It's almost like the house is on fire behind you. There's a glow, there's smoke, and you're like, dude, I know the house is on fire. No, it isn't. Like, dude, like, I have you on video lighting it. Like, I see the flames. No, you're not. It's swamp gas.
Nope.
Dude, I could see it. No, it's fake news.
Right.
That's the
when in
that,
doubt,
I mean,
call it fake
that
news.
literally is the world we're in right now. So what do we do with that? You know, this whole show is about, okay, what do we do with information like this? Well, I think what we do with it is we have to start thinking for ourselves. They're absolutely right. I think a lot of the media is fake. A lot of it is biased. But our schools aren't teaching us how to critically think anymore. We don't really know what a real information source was if it smacked us in the fucking face. So we have to start talking to people. We have to start knowing what to look at. We have to start forming our own opinions and realizing we're only going to know maybe 10%. But let's take what we know about the world and start forming hypotheses that make the most sense. Nothing that's being said now makes any sense. If you really know anything about scratching below the data, it doesn't make sense. So it's up to us, people like us, shows like us, other people, to throw those things out there. Not go, this is what the belief is, but hey, this is the data. You can't deny it. Or this is what we do know. And based upon what we do know, does it make sense what we're hearing? And then maybe we listen to people that where what they're saying matches what the world is telling us rather than the opposite. No, it's not right. There is no spoon. No, there is no fire. That's where I feel as though we're in now. And, you know, I think that's how we get around it. That's how we at least start taking control of it. But if the secret really is that big, I mean, we're all fucked anyway. And maybe there's buying time. Maybe it's why billionaires are buying land in mass in New Zealand and Alaska. Maybe that's why they're consulting with a futurist and technologist and social psychologist on how to survive the post-apocalyptic world. Maybe they're just biding time, getting all the resources so they and their little brood are going to save humankind. I don't know. Maybe this is a drama that plays out. Maybe we'll find out on Mars. We used to be on Mars.
Now, if you're one of these rich people preparing for the post-apocalypse, who do you employ there? If, in theory, in the future, the money has no value, stuff has no value.
So they asked a social psychologist that. You know what they were asking them about, well, like shot collars, mind control, and you know what the social psychologist said to him?
What?
How about be nice to them?
Yeah.
Why don't you treat them like family? So then, because they go, how do I prevent the people that I paid and trained to protect me from everybody else? How do I then stop them from using that same thing to take over what I got? And the guy goes, be nice to them.
Yeah.
Treat them like family. Make them think treat them like equals.
They might not need you anymore.
Yeah. So, that's the truth. I mean, it might sound conspiratorial, but is it? Based upon the evidence, I mean, I think we all know it's all bullshit. So what is the truth? And frankly, I don't think it's that out there. But who knows? We're not going to solve it today.
Okay.
But maybe that's our goal for the next new year. Start trying to come up with a better hypothesis. And, I mean, I guess if we find the truth out, we'll probably be raided and we won't exist anymore. So there's that. So, it's yeah, that's kind of dangerous.
Man, I don't want to drown in 3 inches of water in my bathtub.
I don't want to, man, dude.
I'd rather not.
The Navy SEAL drowns in a tragic bass fishing boat accident.
Right.
Mysterious heart attacks. Oh God. But hey, I think that's enough for now. We've gone on our rants. My voice is kind of wrecked anyway. So I think we roll this here. So I want to thank my guest. My dad, Professor Bill, co-host, my man. Pleasure as always.
Absolutely.
And so just everybody, just everyone have a good new year, and just remember, the next time someone asks you, hey man, you Democrat? Hey man, you Republican? Go fuck that noise. My ass is gray. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great new year. Peace.
All righty. You take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gray Matters Radio with Michael DeVine. For more episodes and information, visit us online at graymattersradio.com. Join the conversation by following Gray Matters Radio on Facebook and Twitter. Gray Matters Radio is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more live episodes of this and other great shows, download the free HC Universal Network app at hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, remember, think about the gray.